Welcome to For the Health of It. I'm your host, Corian K. Paget, and this is your number one source for all things sports, health, and fitness related.
Oh, hold on, Coach. What does For the Health of It stand for?
Good question, Austin. The four and For the Health of It stands for our four principles, which are mindset, movement, nutrition, and recovery.
Okay, cool. Let's do it for the health of it then.
Man, 2021 has been a crazy, hectic year. For the Health of It was nominated for two award shows, the Black Podcasting Awards and the People Choice Awards for podcasts. So, as you may be able to tell by that earlier sound, I am now a proud father to a new, beautiful baby girl. And that put a little, change in the plans. At the start of this year, I was planning on releasing a new episode every week. But being a new parent, it's different. it definitely put a halt to those plans. But I appreciate each and every one of you for listening to this show. Thank you so much. And now, without further ado, let's get into this new episode. Welcome to another edition of For the Health of It. I'm your host, Corian K. Paget, and today I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Tiara Rolle. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm great.
Good.
After yesterday's situation, I'm doing wonderful. It did not shake my peace at all.
Hey, that's a blessing right there. That's a blessing. Dr. Rolle is over in. What part of Georgia are you in?
I'm in east of Atlanta.
Okay. Cool. So is that a city or tell me about that, east of Atlanta? Is it?
So yes, I'm in one of the metro cities of Atlanta. So it's it's like I said, it's east of Atlanta, Lithonia, and it's just a suburb.
Cool. I've heard that terminology before. I didn't know if it was like, a particular city, like in New Orleans, they have New Orleans East or Orleans East, which is like its own actual little city. So I didn't know if it was.
Well, so when I say east of Atlanta, like I'm outside of the city, but there's East Atlanta.
Oh, there is an East Atlanta.
Yeah, so like when people refer to East Atlanta, I mean it's just the eastern part of the actual city versus me being in the suburbs, which is east of the city or outside of the city. So yeah.
Cool. So are you from that area?
I wasn't born here, but I pretty much was raised here. So I've been here a long time.
Cool. So let's go ahead and tell me about yourself. What do you do? And go ahead and tell me, what do you do?
So I am a doctor of physical therapy and certified athletic trainer. And so I graduated from Florida State University with my bachelor's in athletic training. And then I went on to pursue physical therapy from Emory University. And I graduated in 2013, and I've been just doing that for the past over 7 years now. And, I've been traveling. I've had the opportunity to work with some USA sports teams, so like USA Volleyball and also the US Soccer Federation. And, just had a great opportunity serving those organizations. And, right now I am working in my business, which is called the TNT Effect. And I provide sports performance rehab and wellness services for the elite athletes. And, with that, COVID has, kind of shifted a lot of things for me, particularly last year. And so it really forced me to take the time to sit back and really get the framework and start building my business. And so that's what I've been doing since this whole COVID, pretty much took over a lot of things in our lives these days. So that's what I have going on right now.
Cool. So when did you start your own, or when did the TNT Effect come about?
So in 2000, what year is this? 21. So 2019, kind of like mid-year, I was like, you know what? I need to figure out what I can do to start to build my own.
Right.
Because I've been that person, like, okay, I need to figure out how I can work and do things the way that I desire to do them. And, really focus on pushing my mission and my vision for what I want my career to look like.
Right.
And so I started doing research and different things. And at that time is when the idea started to be birthed. And I established the company. And what I mean by establish it, I started the registration process and all that in 2019. But again, it wasn't until, the shutdown is when I really hit the ground running and started getting things in place, building the website, building the framework and all those things that were necessary for me to really be ready to start seeing patients and clients and things of that nature. It's been challenging, of course, because, the being able to market and meet people face to face and all those different things has been a difficult time. Right. But you got to keep going, keep persevering, and work towards those goals no matter what.
Facts. So before you started your own, you were working for another company?
Yeah, so I was doing travel physical therapy, and basically what that looked like was I would work with different travel agencies or staffing agencies, and I'll take on a contract and I would travel to different states or whatnot and work for like 3 months at a time. A standard contract was about 13 weeks. So, I had the opportunity to either extend or not extend if the opportunity was there or if I, had a desire to do so.
Okay. What's the furthest you've traveled?
The furthest I traveled for an actual travel opportunity was California. However, I've actually earlier on in my career, I did relocate to Hawaii for a position. So
nice. Tell me about that.
Well, I love Hawaii. It's great, but obviously it's different living there versus vacationing there, right? The cost of living is high. The salary isn't necessarily commensurate with the cost of living, but it's a great place to be. The people are amazing, and I had a great time there. I didn't stay very long just because I knew for me the opportunity for career growth and the job that I was working at or the facility I was working at wasn't necessarily ideal for my goals and what I wanted to do with my career. So I only stayed about 6 months.
Okay. And that was what, like fresh out of college?
No, I was about a year out, just short of a year out at that time, or working, I should say. Okay. So I was still pretty young in my career at that time.
So if I had to guess, you're about what, 33 at the oldest?
34.
Okay. All right, cool. So you what year did you graduate high school? 06 or 05?
05.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm asking all this because I want to get my timeline right. And you majored in athletic training. And what made you want to major in athletic training?
That is a loaded question. I've actually always wanted to be in the healthcare profession, and I started out wanting to be a physician and a pediatrician at that. Actually, yeah, a pediatrician. My older sister, or oldest, I should say, because I have an older sister by 8 minutes.
Okay. But, okay.
Yes, I do have a twin. But my oldest sister, when I was in the 3rd grade, she wanted to be a pediatrician. So I was like, okay, I want to be like my older sister, and I want to be a doctor too. Right. And it stuck with me. The type of physician changed over the years or whatever. So I went from, I can't even remember the timeline, but I know at some point I wanted to be an OBGYN. I wanted to be a cardiologist, a neurosurgeon, just a orthopedic surgeon. And so by the time I got to my senior year, I was introduced to athletic training. It wasn't like a big thing during the time, like throughout most of my high school years, because I don't even think we had one up until maybe my senior year. And I was introduced to the profession and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. So at that time I was juggling between going to school to major in for pre-med to become an orthopedic surgeon, or I think a OBGYN. And so I was kind of like on the fence between those two. Right. And I think the idea of majoring in athletic training or sports medicine was a good route for me to get to that profession. And so that's what made me go into athletic training at that time.
Cool. So what was the athletic training program like at FSU?
I mean, it was a grind for sure, because first of all, you had to, going into it my freshman year, I had to take an intro to athletic training course. Right. And that was kind of like, that was a part of the application process. So you had to take that intro class. You had to pass certain competencies and like actually check off on those. and then we had to do an interview, and we had to do kind of like a volunteer observation type of thing during that time too, at like a local high school or one of the other sports programs in the community. And of course, you had to get like recommendations and stuff like that. So it was kind of almost like applying to grad school.
Right.
And so I got accepted. So going into my sophomore year, that's when I started my core classes for the major, as well as having to do the university, meet the university requirements.
Right.
And so it was tough because you had, full-time classes on top of having, I had a work study job and practice. So we had to go in and before the athletes started practice,
you had treatment, right? You had to go to treatment and all that.
Yeah, so we had to do like treatments. We had to prepare for practice, go to practice, break down practice.
What sport?
Some of us sports. So I worked with track and field, swimming and diving. I worked with soccer, football, and then also like a couple sports like off campus or at one of the community colleges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Man, that's and you had a work study job?
Yeah, I didn't have a ton of time for a social life, I should say.
Okay. Yeah, I believe you now that you say you had a twin, because I bet she was doing half the work for you.
Oh no, she was grinding in her own major.
Okay.
Her major was pretty tedious and time consuming as well.
So why did you choose Florida State?
I chose Florida. That's a good question, because I actually didn't have any desire to apply to any Florida schools because I'm originally from Florida, and I was like, I don't want to go to Florida, and I don't want to stay in Georgia, and but I ended up applying to about 3 Florida schools anyway. Okay. And with Florida State, it had a great program, the sports medicine program, sports medicine / athletic training at the time when I first got in. But so I was like, okay, yeah, I can go here. And then my sister got accepted as well. So I was like, okay, cool. We'll just go to the same school and that works out just fine. I was also able to get in-state tuition. So perfect. That was even a better bonus.
Right. Okay. So you're in the athletic training program. At what point while you're in the program do you say, basically, when I finish this undergraduate degree, I'm going into physical therapy school?
I want to say, I think it was either the last semester of my junior year or like the semester right before I started senior year. And I realized, well, I knew early on, once I got into the athletic training program, I was like, man, this is so time consuming. How do people have, a family, get married and all that stuff? Because it's very time consuming. You travel, the hours are unconventional. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out something that will give me the flexibility. And so I came across physical therapy and I was like, you know what, I can do this. There's a huge overlap in what we do anyway.
Facts.
And so I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. And so at that point, that's when I started researching different schools and programs. And I decided that I was going to take that leap and go into physical therapy. And it also gave me an opportunity, even though I decided that I didn't want to go to med school, I was like, you know what, I'll still get a doctorate degree, doctorate. So it worked out anyway.
Yeah. So you graduated Florida State in 2009?
So I finished the semester early. So I finished in 2008.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that, man. It took me 6 years to get my undergrad.
Listen, I remember my freshman year going to like orientation and everything, and they were like, take 12 credits. You don't want to take more than that because it's a lot, it's too much. And I did the math and I was like, there's no way I'll finish in 4 years without taking more than that and doing summer classes. So I was taking like 18, 19 credits a semester. I was in school every summer. And then eventually I realized that I can graduate early. So I was like, oh yes, I'm doing this.
Congratulations, man. Hey, you are, I don't know if anybody has ever said this to you, but you are an inspiration.
Thank you.
To everybody, no matter race, creed, or gender. Big ups to you for that. So if I'm doing this math right in my head, in that '07 to 2010 range is when the field of physical therapy, because at first you just got your master's in physical therapy, but around that timeline is when they started shifting and saying it will be now a doctorate program. So am I correct in thinking like you, or can you, I'm gonna let you explain that.
Right. Yeah. So initially, PT started out as a bachelor's degree. So you'll find, a lot of seasoned PTs who have a bachelor's, and then a transition at some point to a master's. And then somewhere in that timeline you were speaking of, I think that's about right. It started shifting towards the doctorate. And so now I don't think you'll find too many programs, if any at all, that have a master's program.
So you were somewhere, you basically what I'm saying is like you're in that first group of classes.
No, I'm not in the first group because there are some groups that actually came, a number of groups that came before me,
Gotcha.
And graduated with their doctorate. So
Okay.
I'm not the first.
Hey, I was about to clap it up for you again. Hey, but my next question, you already mentioned it, but can you remind me where did you go to PT school?
I went to Emory University.
Okay, in Atlanta. Okay. Cool. And what made you choose Emory?
Well, when I was looking at schools, first of all, it was a great location. And also just the program itself was one of excellence, a great program to be a part of. And also it's always been a part of like the top 5 schools, DPT programs in the nation. Right. So that was a bonus as well.
Cool. I had a homeboy of mine from high school where I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi. So this dude out of nowhere was like, yeah, I'm going to Emory. I'm like, well, where is that? He said in Atlanta. I haven't seen him since. He's been doing well though. I keep up with him on social media. So shout out to my boy D Red doing real well. My next question for you is, what type of modalities differentiate what type of the scopes of practice between a PT and athletic trainer? Can you tell me about that?
Well, a lot of what athletic trainers do deals with the athletic population, right? Mm-hmm. And so they tend to be that first line of defense when it comes to acute care, those injuries that happen. They're the first ones to evaluate them and make the recommendations. And, they'll, depending on the organization that they're a part of, they'll be involved extensively in the rehab process. And in some spaces, it may not be that extensive. It may, kind of, if they're the only one there and they have a large team and they don't have a lot of time, the rehab process may look a little bit different.
Right.
But when it comes to PT, we deal with all populations as it relates to functional limitations, musculoskeletal, neurological issues, and a whole gamut of different things. And so we are less restricted when it comes to what we can do and the autonomy. A lot of states have some form of direct access, and which means you may not necessarily require a physician referral to initiate care.
Gotcha.
But again, that looks different in various states. Whereas an athletic trainer, even if they are working in a clinical setting, their abilities may look different.
Okay. Cool. So Dr. Rolle, we talked about what you do. You're a physical therapist and you're a certified athletic trainer, and you own your own company. So you just wear major hats, a lot of different hats. So now I want to know why. What's your why?
My why is I want to be able to provide excellent care, a holistic approach to healthcare for elite athletes. And, sometimes we see people or athletes or whoever it may be, whoever the client or patient may be, it's, you look at the condition or their physical issue and treat that, but that's not the case. We're dealing with a lot of different components. There's the mental aspect, you have a spiritual aspect, all of the emotions that people deal with. You have to take on all of that. So we do wear a lot of hats as PTs and also as athletic trainers. People tell you a lot. You build that rapport with them. We spend a lot of time with our patients, and so we do build that relationship. And a lot of times they tend to trust us, and they tell us a lot. So you have to be able to, not just see them or just see the diagnosis. And so for me, it is important to address the whole person and not just the physical ailment.
Okay. No, I love it. I love it. What does the TNT stand for?
So the TNT came from, it's actually a nickname that people called my sister and I, because both of our names start with a T. And I initially didn't want to go that route with naming the business. And my sister was like, maybe you should think of something, with TNT. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's not really clicking for me.
Right.
And one day I was on my way to church, and this particular day, so I was crossing this street, and we normally have officers who direct the traffic.
Right.
And so one of the officers who we would see all the time and speak to us, very nice. I don't know, that day he just looked like something was off. He was frustrated by something. So we asked him like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And he told us. And but then he was like, but you know what? Every time I see y'all like brighten my day. It's like, the sunshine or something like that, something along those lines. And he was like, yeah, it's like the TNT effect. So when he said that, it clicked for me, and I was like, that's it, the TNT effect.
Oh, that's dope. That is dope.
And he had no idea that was like a nickname of ours.
Right. Man, that's cool.
And the crazy thing about it is, after that day, I've not seen him since to even say, hey, you know what? I named my business. You inspired the name for my business.
Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. And I'm looking at your logo on Instagram, man, on your shirt. Like you said, you can see the sun rising. You see the athletes, the silhouettes of the athletes and whatnot. And if you just looking at it from far back, it looks like an explosion, almost like TNT. And then I love it. I love the logo. I love all that. So my next question goes back to your why. And you were talking about a holistic approach, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. Where do you stand on preventative medicine versus rehabilitative medicine?
Well, obviously there is a place for both. Ideally, I would like for our quote unquote healthcare system to be more proactive versus reactive. And so that involves implementing preventive care and wellness and equipping people with the tools and resources that are needed to prevent, long-term issues and a lot of things that can be prevented, that are within our own control, right? So I think that for me, first and foremost, I think preventive medicine is huge. It's necessary so that we don't have to deal with all the common things that happen, like the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, all of those things that lead to a gamut of other health issues, right?
Right. Okay. So great response again. Before I get you out of here, you mentioned before we started recording, you got your own podcast, and I would not feel right, Dr. Rolle, if I didn't allow you to shout out your own. So definitely shout out your own podcast and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called the TNT Effect, the Athletes Podcast, and you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much almost any podcast platform that you can think of. We're also on YouTube. So just type in the TNT Effect, the Athletes Podcast, and you'll find that. And also my IG handle is at the TNT Effect.
Cool. Do you have a website?
I do. It's www.thetnteffect.com.
Cool. Hey Doc, we appreciate you. Next time I get you on, I don't like not prepping my guests, so I didn't send you any sample questions that's more specific to the field of PT, and so I'm not gonna ask you any of those today. But next time, if you will come back, it would be a pleasure to have you back. I will ask you those type of questions. So thank you so much again for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. This has been another episode of For the Health of It. I'm your host, Corian K. Patrick.